My heart is to see God's people full of passion and the fire of God, hungry for His presence on a daily basis, full of His power and having a positive impact on the world and those around them, living a life of freedom and victory. This is Running with Fire.
And you know, that's true for every one of us here tonight, that God's got so much more for each and every one of us. We're going to be all that God has called us to be, fulfill our destiny and God's plan for our lives. There is going to have to be some elements of delaying gratification in our lives, of self-control. That surrender is the pathway to God. It's the pathway to more of Him in your life and in my life. And that's my greatest desire, is more of God. Is anyone with me on this? God, more of you, Jesus. Wherever He has placed you, out in that community, out in your workplace, out in your school, as a nurse, a teacher, or whatever it is a calling from God. And when you see it as a calling, it changes everything, and you are willing to make sacrifices for it.
Hi, I'm Tak Bhana. The theme for this coming conference of New Zealand and beyond is Your Kingdom Come. Our nation absolutely needs heaven. What is in heaven to come to earth and to see New Zealand turn to Jesus. We'd love you to come along and join us at New Zealand and beyond.
Come to the New Zealand and Beyond Conference this April in Christchurch and Auckland. Register at nzandbeyond.com.
I wonder how many of you need God to do a miracle in your life. You need a breakthrough. You need an answer to prayer. You need a miracle. Give me a wave if you're in that category, because I want to speak hopefully to you tonight and share something of what I believe is the key for this. It's found in Joshua 3 verse 5. Joshua said to the people, "Sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you." Why don't you say that with me? Tomorrow the Lord will do wonders. Why don't you try that again? Tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. I've been drawn to this verse for most of this year, and I believe God is truly wanting to do amazing things in our lives, but also in our nation that will astound us. We need to be astounded by God at work in this land of ours, but also in our lives. But I found this, when God wants to do wonders among us, it comes with a call to a greater surrender. Surrender positions you for the more of God, for a greater blessing from God. And you know, that's true for every one of us here tonight, that God's got so much more for each and every one of us. Why don't you tell the person next to you, God has got much more for you yet. How many of you actually believe that? Yeah, I mean, there's always more in God. He's always the God of the more. And, you know, I find a call to surrender, not like everybody's not like this, but I find a call to surrender incredibly exciting, because I know the result is going to be more of God. And I think that's the best you can have in life. You know, one aspect of surrender I've found is what I call delayed gratification. So in 1972, a university professor, a psychologist, conducted a series of studies on delayed gratification. You'll recognize this DVD clip, so check it out.
Going in here, we have a treat. Do you like marshmallows?
Yeah.
Yeah? Do you want to have a seat? The deal is, you can eat this marshmallow now, or you can wait until I come back and I'll give you 2 marshmallows. If you decide to change your mind, that's fine, okay?
I'm waiting.
Okay, I'm gonna push you in a little bit more. Oh. I'll be back in a few minutes.
You want to have 2 marshmallows? Yeah. Then don't eat the marshmallow.
Hey, Lola.
Hi.
How'd you do?
Good, I was waiting.
You were waiting. Good job. Here's your second marshmallow.
Thank you.
You didn't eat your marshmallow. No, so you get another one. Do you think your mom or dad would eat the first marshmallow, or do you think they would wait like you did?
Well, my dad would eat the first marshmallow, and my mom would patiently wait. I chose to wait because patience is good.
You know, when you look at that, isn't that a picture of Christianity? In this sense, that what I find is, you know, God says, if you will surrender to me, deny yourself some pleasures, sacrifice, I promise to bless you with much more than you could ever imagine. If we delay our gratification, you know, and we actually do it. We do it all the time. You do it every time you go to church instead of sleeping in or going to the beach. You do it every time you pray instead of play. You do it every time you don't buy something so you can just give a little bit more to God. So we're actually doing this all the time. Jesus put it this way: if you lose your life, you're going to find it. If you die to yourself, you are really going to begin to live. I call it the upside down gospel. It all works in reverse. But once you really get this, once you get that revelation, then you really find living for God such an exciting experience. See, delayed gratification is basically this: the ability to pass up an immediate pleasure to get a bigger or better reward later on. So the psychologists, what they did is they did 216 kids in this experiment, and they tracked them through to the end of college. And they found a dramatic difference between the one marshmallow now kids and the two marshmallows later. And this is what they discovered: that those who were able to delay gratification were more self-motivated, were more successful in school, they did better socially, and handled frustration and stress a lot better. Amazing. Now, there were exceptions to this, of course, but overall, the ones who couldn't wait actually struggled through life and overall were less successful. Do you know, I've discovered this: if we're going to be all that God has called us to be, fulfill our destiny and God's plan for our lives, there is going to have to be some elements of delaying gratification in our lives, of self-control to reach the goals that we have for us. They're out of this world. They're wonderful what God has for us, but there is an aspect of letting some things go, denying ourselves. So I want you to just fasten your seatbelts for a moment, because we're heading into a little bit of turbulence, all right? You okay for that? Would you believe that 100 years ago, there was a group known as one-way missionaries? You think, what does that mean? Well, they didn't pack their suitcases, but they placed their few earthly belongings in coffins. Pretty gross, eh? As they sailed away, they left behind everything they knew and everything they loved, knowing they would never return home. Now, you and I know that is an incredibly extreme example. But you know, it really inspires me. And I'll tell you why it inspires me, because I think to myself, what is it that would cause man or woman to sacrifice their lives to that level? What is it about this man called Jesus that people would forsake and abandon all to live for him and to serve for him? And there's something deep within all of us that wants to be so surrendered to God. I know it is for me. It's probably the longing of my heart. God, would you take me deeper? But I sometimes don't know how to get there. So when I read an illustration like that, as extreme as it is, it makes me think, who is this man? Who is this Jesus that people would forsake their all And there's people sitting here tonight who have done that very thing in a different way. And I've come to understand this, that surrender is the pathway to God. It's the pathway to more of Him in your life and in my life. And that's my greatest desire, is more of God. Is anyone with me on this? God, more of you. More of you, Jesus. Not more of me, more of you. But who is this man? Who is this carpenter of Nazareth that doesn't demand this kind of sacrifice? He doesn't order it from us. He inspires it out of us. That is something we want to do. There's something about this man, Jesus, that inspires such devotion, such consecration to Him. And it's an honor to do it. It's a privilege to do it. It's a joy to do it. It's an honor to do it. He's worthy of it. He deserves it. So that's why when I read examples like this, I don't go, oh no, here we go again. I think, wow, God, would you give me some of that? Understanding that revelation. See, I reckon the one-way missionaries somehow got the same revelation the apostles of old had, that the greatest cause on planet Earth to live for is to take this gospel to the ends of the earth. From your street to the furthest corners of this world. They had that revelation. And we know most of them came to a sticky end. I don't think that bothered them that much because they were living for a cause way beyond themselves. Now, many of you are sitting here thinking, I'm glad I'm not called to be a missionary. Well, actually, you are. Gotcha. You're God's missionary to your street. Who else is going to reach your street? You're God's missionary in your workplace. You're God's missionary in your school. You're God's missionary in your community. You're God's missionary in the university. We're all missionaries. Friend, tell the person next to you, you're a missionary. But you're just lucky you don't have to pack your belongings in a coffin, all right? Made it easier for you. Surrender positions you for wonders. That's really my message. For years as a young Christian, I would be on altars. A lot of you did the same, just selling out for God. Saying, Jesus, if this, God, if there's something you can do with this young, messed up life, I'm yours. Do what you can. I must have done that dozens of times. Dozens of times. That's why I love surrender. So when it was real, so when God called Adrian, my wife, to give up well-paid jobs as an accountant and as a nurse to be missionaries in the Philippines, friends, there was not one moment of hesitation. We were all in. As someone said, for the all in all. When God said, go to the Middle East, I said yes. When He says, I want you to minister every year in Pakistan, I say yes. That's surrender. Not my will, Lord, but yours be done. However, it is my prayer that one day He will say Hawaii, Vienna, Paris. When you give yourself fully to God, you can expect God to give Himself fully to you. That's the deal. That's the deal. If you go all out for God, He'll go all out for you. It's not complicated, is it? Come with me to Mark chapter 10 and verse 29 to 30. And we read these words. So Jesus said, assuredly I say to you, there's no one who's left houses or brothers or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or lands for my sake and the gospel. Watch this. That's sacrifice. That's delayed gratification. Who shall not receive 100-fold now in this time? Houses, brothers, sisters, mothers, children, lands with persecution. Skip that part. And in the age to come, eternal life. Jesus himself, listen, says this. I will make up for every sacrifice. No one ever sacrifices anything for me that I do not pay back 100-fold. He says, in this life and in the life to come. Now, many of you sitting here tonight have sacrificed much for the kingdom of God. You've gone without in many areas. It's cost you in terms of finances, in terms of family, in terms of other areas. And you've suffered. But I want you to know tonight that God is going to make up for every single aspect of sacrifice or suffering you have ever made for Jesus. He is no man's debtor. He will repay. And when he repays, it will be absolutely massive. But one of the keys is not the one marshmallow now, but go for the two later. Sacrifice now for more later. Not because you have to, but because you want to. In 1976, Apple was founded by three men, Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and the third you've probably never heard of, Ronald Wayne. He sketched the first logo, created the first manual, became a 10% shareholder. He sold his shares 2 weeks after getting them for $800. Today, they're worth at least $47 billion. He took the one marshmallow now and missed out on $47 billion. I reckon that's a good picture for us. If we will deny ourselves the one marshmallow now, wow, the rewards, the favor, the blessing of God out of this world. Indecision is a decision. Don't say someday I'll sell out for God when the mortgage is paid off, the kids are older, then I'll serve with passion. I say go all out for Jesus today. Don't wait another day. Don't wait another moment. This is your time. This is your day. This is your moment. And you'll never regret it. And you'll end up with a walk with God you never dreamed possible. But living in consumer society, everyone says, take the one marshmallow now. The credit card generation. What's the message of the credit card? You can have it now. You don't have to deny yourself. Put it on the card. 1 Corinthians 9:24-27, do you not know that those who run in a race run all? But one receives a prize. Run in such a way you may obtain it. Everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a perishable crown, but we for an imperishable crown. Olympians live through years of delaying gratification, of sacrifice, hard work, sweat and tears, injuries, diets, losses. Why? They have a vision of a future reward, of winning gold. Does that ring a bell? The vision of a future reward. Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of the Lord. You have a vision that motivates you to make the sacrifices, to go without at times, but it's all worthwhile. Paul modeled 2 marshmallows later brilliantly when he said in 2 Corinthians 4:17, our light affliction. How could Paul call his afflictions light? I mean, this guy went through hell and back. He said, but our light affliction, that's how he saw it, which is but for a moment, is working for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. Let me just tell you a few people who sold out for one marshmallow. If you find yourself in this group of people, I don't want you to feel bad or condemned, because we serve the God of the second chance, the third chance, the fourth chance, the 100th chance. So don't feel bad when you hear these stories, but let's learn a lesson from it. One marshmallow man. Judas betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. I don't know about you, but I feel incredibly sorry for Judas. Money got him. Then there's Samson. He took the one marshmallow of sex now. Not able to delay gratification. Esau sold his birthright for a meal of stew. Then there's Moses. He said, I'll take the 2 marshmallows later, thanks. Hebrews 11:23-25. Choosing to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin, for he looked to the reward. There were 3 bricklayers, and they were asked, what are you doing? First one says, I'm laying bricks. It's okay. Second one says, I'm constructing a church building. The third one says, I'm building the house of God. They're all doing the same thing, laying bricks. The first bricklayer, he had a job. Second bricklayer, he had a career. The third bricklayer had a calling. It's the third that's going to empower you to sacrifice. Knowing what you're doing is what God has called you to do is a game changer. It's not a job, it's not a career, it's a call of God upon your life. Here's a quote for you. Your job is what you're paid for. Your calling is what you're made for. Move from a job to a calling. I'll explain how you do that in just a moment. You know, I decided very early on, even as a pastor in the church, that I do not work for the church. I do not work for a church board, although they employ me and pay me and all the rest of it. I work for Jesus Christ. He's my boss. He's my Lord. I will sacrifice so much for a church, but I'll draw a line. But when I sacrifice for Jesus, there's no line I can draw. If Jesus Christ be God and died for me, no sacrifice I could make would ever be too great for him. And that is the truth. I don't say that I can live that out yet, but hey, it's in my heart to be all that I can be for Jesus. God will never let you down. A church may, others may. It's easier to sacrifice for God than for a company or for a boss or for a church. See, many workers see themselves as having a job, a necessity of life. Others see their job as a career, a stepping stone to something more. Only a few see their work as a calling and as one of the most important things in their lives. And I want you to see what you do as a calling. One study showed that those who saw their job as a calling missed 1/3 fewer days off work. Imagine that, eh? They had greater perseverance because it was a calling. It wasn't a job. What are you in? They also discovered in this survey that any kind of job can be viewed as a calling. In fact, every job is a calling. Whether you're a builder or a plumber or an accountant or a nurse or a teacher, they are all full-time ministries. They are all callings from God. It's what you are ordained by God to do, to bring transformation to wherever He has placed you, out in that community, out in your workplace, out in your school, as a nurse, a teacher, or whatever it is. It is a calling from God. And when you see it as a calling, it changes everything, and you are willing to make sacrifices for it. One step tonight of sacrifice can be worth 1,000 brilliant sermons. Sometimes we think we got to do 100 steps or a massive giant leap, or so many steps that we end up doing nothing. But one small step can have a phenomenal result. You know, Church Unlimited, someone said, why don't you mention this? I wasn't going to, but I will. They just said, you know, one thing we've done as Church Unlimited is for 30 years, every Thursday, we've fasted and prayed. It's not a big deal. It was a little bit difficult to start, but, you know, it's just like real easy to do now. There's a denial of ourselves, of self-gratification. But, you know, 30 years down the road, that one act repeated is bearing fruit that is just blows our minds of what God can do. Some of you tonight may make that decision, that one step, that you're going to maybe not fast a day a week, but maybe go without a meal a week or something like that. Whatever it is, Allow the Holy Spirit to speak to you. But what I'm saying is one step, folks, one decision, one surrender, one risk could just change your future forever. We don't think much about heaven. Have you ever found this? Everyone wants to go to heaven, but no one wants to die. How are you going to get there? We on the screen a line and a dot. All that's involved in this life does matter. It matters a lot. It's just that eternity matters a whole lot more. And the challenge is to live our lives, to live in the dot, but our eyes fixed on eternity. You don't hear this much. But that's what got the heroes of faith through. That's what got Paul through. Listen to what Paul said in 1 Corinthians 15:19. If in Christ we have hope in this life only, we are of all people most to be pitied. He's saying if this is life is it, living for Jesus now and there's no resurrection, there's no eternal rewards. He said, wow, it's a really sad state of affairs. We're more to be pitied than anyone else. If death is the end, don't sacrifice, eat, drink, and be merry. But knowing there was a resurrection was Paul's great motivation. You see, God will repay for every sacrifice, for every delayed gratification that you or I make. He is no man's debtor. As the musicians team would please come. To be a high impact Christian, we want to reach New Zealand and beyond. It's a lofty vision. It's a massive vision. It's a huge vision. But if we're going to do it, my message tonight really is this, that it will require some sacrifice. But the results will be in greater joy, fulfillment, and peace and satisfaction. Why? Because a sold out life for Jesus is what you were created for. Joshua 3 verse 5. Joshua said to the people, sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. I think it's time for wonders. It's time for the incredible, the amazing, the astounding, the phenomenal, the exceptional, the extraordinary, the unusual, the unseen before. It's time for it, and the time is now. And the pathway in and the great way through is surrender and yielding your life as best you can to the Most High God.
Thanks for watching Running with Fire with Tak Bhana from Church Unlimited. Church Unlimited meets in a number of locations across New Zealand and overseas. We would love to have you as our guest. If you're interested in attending the annual New Zealand and Beyond conference, you can find out more at nzandbeyond.com.